Picking an oil company like Chevron seems like a no-brainer when we think about the most unethical companies of the last 100 years. Everywhere we looked, we found more and more horrifying stories about Chevron's blatant disregard for humankind, the earth, natural resources, and even their employees. Chevron Corporation has a very long and successful history. They were first established as the Pacific Coast Oil Company on September 10, 1879 in San Francisco, California. In their early years, Chevron acquired a refinery named California Star, a pipeline linking Pico Canyon with the Southern Pacific train station at Ileon in Southern California, and undertook a successful drilling program. Pacific Coast Oil Company consolidated under its subsidiary, the Iowa Standard Oil Company, in 1885. The company's structure grew once again in 1906 when a consolidation between Pacific Coast Oil and Iowa Standard created Standard Oil Company. Standard Oil sales manager John McLean created the world's first service station in Seattle. Standard's drilling team had its first success on January 22, 1910, when a gusher flowed in at 1,500 barrels a day. A partnership with Texaco started in 1936, which was known as the California Texas Oil Company, or Caltex. Standard's Middle Eastern exploration and Texaco's marketing network in Africa and Asia together made Caltex a major international marketer and refiner.
On the west coast of South America, straddling the equator from which it derives its name, lies the country of Ecuador. Slightly smaller than the state of Nevada, it is home to both the Galapagos Islands and the rainforests of the Amazon. In spite of its relatively small size, Ecuador is home to a vast array of animal and plant species. So much so that Ecuador has been named by Conservation International one of only 17 megadiverse countries in the world, a group of countries that harbor the majority of the Earth's species. Ecuador is also home to a number of native indigenous groups, including the Azucar, Secoya, and Kofan nationalities. These people live off the land. They drink water from the rivers and use them for fishing, bathing, and cooking. And now, thanks to Chevron, they are sick and dying for doing so. Laboratory studies have confirmed extremely high levels of toxins in the soils in Ecuador's Amazon, some as high as 10,000 times over the maximum tolerances allowed by regulatory authorities in the United States. In several independent health evaluations, including one conducted in the village of San Carlos, cancer rates were up to 30 times higher than normal, and the incidence of childhood leukemia was found to have reached alarming levels. One analysis of health and population data found that more than 9,000 people in the area of Chevron's operations are going to contract cancer in the coming decades, even assuming Chevron undertakes an immediate and comprehensive remediation. This is the real human impact of exposure to oil contamination. The public health catastrophe resulting from Chevron's environmental destruction easily could have been avoided if Chevron had lined the pits and re-injected toxic wastewater as required by the law and industry standards. Why then did Chevron choose to use substandard operational practices in the delicate rainforest environment of Ecuador? Because what Texaco and Chevron have always cared about most in Ecuador is protecting their profits, even at the expense of the indigenous groups and delicate ecosystem.
For those not familiar with Chevron, we're a global energy company with a market capitalization of about $150 billion. We're best known for our marketing of petroleum products under the brand name Chevron, Texaco, and
the world's worst oil-related disaster.
Reckless oil exploration poisoned the most important rainforest on Earth.
Contaminated by decades of toxic oil waste.
When Texaco finished its drilling, the waste pits were abandoned by the hundreds.
The oil company just covered it with tree trunks and topsoil.
The people who live in those oil field areas say that their environment is trashed and more than 1,000 people are dead from cancer.
A landmark class action lawsuit against Chevron.
The largest environmental lawsuit in history.
Wherever Chevron operates in the world, it's going to comply with the highest environmental standards.
We don't want to be in any court, much less a court with respect to this kind of a claim, which we consider frivolous.
We will fight until hell freezes over and then fight it out on the ice.
Correct.
There has been no detection of any type of toxin that is not naturally occurring in the environment and that is dangerous to human health.
For someone to say that we just push dirt on the spits, it's absolutely untrue. It's absolutely true.
We don't believe that there's an epidemic of cancer or any other diseases as a result of oil.
Scientifically, nobody proved that crude causes cancer.
There's absolutely no evidence that there's an increase in cancer. And I know that's difficult to explain. Because of the science behind it.
I have makeup on and there's naturally occurring oil on my face. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get sick from it.
But let me ask you. There's a massive multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Chevron Texaco for supposedly destroying your rainforest. What if every little nation on the planet decided to sue oil companies for billions? Wouldn't that disrupt oil production worldwide?
Well, with these lawsuits, they don't go to interrupt the oil production in the third world. They go to push these big transnational companies in order to be a lot more careful when they want to extract our oil, because they did and they do in the third world things that they don't do in the first world. So it's a double standard that they have.
Well, according to Chevron, and I've spoken to them, they said that they operated very cleanly, just as they do in the U.S.
Okay, yes.
I'll tell you what they're saying.
And also Cinderella exits, a lot of things, you know.
And they blame your oil company. They say it's your fault.
That is not true. Of course, our oil company has also done a lot of damage in the rainforest, but it is very clear that the problem comes from the Chevron Texaco period, okay? Texaco period, because at the beginning it was just Texaco. So there are a lot of evidence about that.
Well, but here's the problem. First of all, can they get a fair trial here? They say that there's no chance that they can get a fair trial here.
Well, always there is a pretext excuse in order to avoid the responsibilities, you know. We think that they can have a fair trial here. And I can add, the evidence is there, of course. They are blaming our oil company, but before our oil company took over the exploitation, the damage was there.